Hey everyone, my name is Cameron Talley. I am a health promotion specialist at the Center for Student Wellbeing at University of South Florida on the Tampa campus. And today we're really going to dive into stress and anxiety management. I know that we probably get a lot of, are we taking care of ourselves? Are we managing stress? And so really during this time, including world events that are happening, everything going on with COVID, and trying to transition back to some form of normalcy, we probably all have experienced some type of stress and anxiety, even in the last month, in the last year, at some points in our life. And so I really want to talk a little bit about who we are and what we do here at the Center for Student Wellbeing. Just briefly, we really focus on holistic wellness, promoting healthy behaviors. We have a lot of topic areas that we cover. One of our top ones that we get requested the most is over stress and anxiety management, sleep hygiene. We talk about alcohol and other drug education, and much more. We offer students free wellness packs, free resources. Students can walk into our office and get all of these services for absolutely no cost to them. And we do a lot of population-based programming as well. We also train Reach for Health educators in our program and through our department, where they do a lot of that peer-to-peer health education piece, which is so vital to the overall health and wellness of our students. So speaking of well-being, I don't know how many of you focus or really work a lot with this dimensions of wellness, but I really wanted to talk a little bit about it first before we dived into more of that stress and anxiety management. So when I think about well-being is defined as the state of being happy, comfortable, and or healthy, right? It includes so many components: your mental health, your physical health, your sleep, your social interactions, your relationships, and anything else you can probably think of. So we look at the dimensions of well-being. We look at each of these components. They're all the same size of circle, and that is because each of them is so important to our overall well-being and health. So each one of these is impacting the other. If one is hurting really bad, or you're going through a lot emotionally, that's going to affect our physical symptoms, or maybe our occupation, how often we go out with our friends, so our social, as well as other components of that dimensions of wellness. And so just a really important, graph to go back to, and making sure and checking in with yourself, like, am I focusing on my dimensions of well-being? Am I taking care of my wheel, right? So that's that wheel of well-being. So now let's talk a little bit about stress. So we all talk about how stressed out we are. We all have experienced stress, but really, what is it? Well, it's the reaction to a stimulus that disturbs the body's equilibrium, right? So something happens and our body's responds to it, right? So stress can be a good thing in an immediate danger situation, right? It helps us to stay safe, or try to stay safe. And so we do have heard of that fight, flight, or freeze response, right? Unfortunately, we deal with a lot of this response to stress, a lot of these reactions, a lot of things that occur throughout our day that disrupts our balance, right? It throws us off balance. And so we deal with these, and we're in that constant state of fight, flight, or freeze, right? We're constantly wired up, or constantly shut down, or whatever it is that you experience, or however you respond to stress in different situations. And so thinking through some of that, we're different than other mammals in that, for example, a zebra being chased or something by a predator is going to go back to eating their grass and going back to that mellow state after they've run away, right? And they've realized, oh, the threat is gone. And unfortunately, we as humans don't operate in that same exact capacity. So we also oftentimes need to do something in order to help us get back to that state of balance, where we're not experiencing such high levels of stress. So then what is anxiety? Well, anxiety is that unpleasant feeling of dread over an anticipated event, right? So something that we're worried about, maybe we're really fearful of, maybe we're really dreading it. It can be in a lot of different areas, whether it's generalized, whether it's separation anxiety, social anxiety. Maybe you're a student and it's test anxiety, that really hones in on your focus. And the thing about stress and anxiety is that they can go hand in hand. They can exacerbate the other, right? They can kind of feed off one another, and they can both have detrimental effects to our overall health and well-being, and even our productivity at work or at school or whatever it is that we're trying to do. So, my next question for you to really think about is what stresses you out, right? So, thinking through some of the things in your life that maybe you've experienced today, maybe you've experienced this week, maybe it's been over the last month or the last year that's really impacted you and that has been causing you additional stress. And we'll talk through some of these common stressors, and it's not limited to these, but just keeping in mind that these are some common stressors that we all tend to experience. One is school. So whether you have been in school, whether you're currently in school, at some point in time, stress from school was very common, right? Or is very common. Another is financial, right? So we all have probably experienced some type of financial stressors, whether that be, working your first job or paying for school or paying for something else. So thinking through financial and how that can be stressful. Our work, right? So work can be stressful, even if we really love our jobs. It can be stressful at times. World events, right? There's so many things in our world that's going on right now that's really, really, really impacting our health and impacting our stress levels that are out of our control, right? So we think about the war that's happening in Ukraine and Russia right now, thinking through COVID-19 and what that means, legislation, right? All of those things can be really, really stressful on us. Major life events. So this can be being laid off from a job, even things that are exciting, like graduating from college or finding out that good news from a family or anything else, or getting a new job and having to relocate. Right. So even those these things can be enjoyable. Major life events can also be really stressful. Social interactions and relationships. So, this doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship with your partner. It can also be friendships, it can be familial relationships that we have to endure, can sometimes be really, really stressful on us. And the last one is body image, right? The way in which we view our bodies. Are we satisfied with ourselves? Are we loving ourselves? Or are we experiencing, self-hate or other things like that, which again can influence our stress levels, the way that we eat, the way our relationship with food. And so it can impact a lot of other areas in our lives. So I always throw this in here on that stress curve thing. And looking through our performance level, and I mentioned, productivity performance earlier, but thinking through that curve of stress, right? If we have no stress at all, we may not be motivated to do our jobs. We may not be motivated to study for that exam or whatever it is that you're experiencing at that time, right? But if we have too much stress and too much anxiety and we have too much on our plates, then that is what can lead to even more anxiety, that panic, anger, fear, complete burnout. I feel like through COVID, I've been experiencing much higher levels of burnout, and just the constant changing of what it means to work. And be effective in our jobs during this time. And so thinking through some of that stress curve is that, a little bit of stress keeps us motivated. It keeps us wanting to do our jobs and wanting to do other things. But at the same time, when it reaches that point where we're completely exhausted, we have too much stress, we're kind of breaking down, we're burnout, and we're not able to be our best selves and our most productive selves. So, thinking through, can chronic stress have health risk? And the short answer to that is absolutely, right? So, thinking through, it's been correlated to depression and anxiety, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, and any type of disruption to the immune system, our digestive system, cardiovascular, sleep, reproductive systems. So, when we're feeling really, really stressed out, and say, for example, we try to go to sleep, right? If we're too stressed out, we're probably not getting a good amount of sleep. And then we wake up, we feel more irritable, right? We feel exhausted. We haven't got the rest that we needed. Our digestive system hasn't gotten the rest that it needed. And thinking through how that impacts everything that we do throughout the day, right? What we eat. Do we exercise when we feel really irritable and really tired? Thinking through some of those questions about how we can, visually see just through one day of how not getting enough sleep, just that one component can impact so many other areas of our health. So, what are some symptoms of stress and anxiety? There are a lot. So as you look through this list, and I won't, go through each of them, but think through, what do I personally experience when I'm experiencing stress and anxiety? The two can look very different and the two can look the exact same, right? For me, it's very different. If I'm stressed out, I have a lot of muscle tension. I am super irritable, right? And so I feel like I need to do something to get some of that out. So a good walk is really good for me, a run, even some good stretching. But when I'm really anxious about something, I notice that my heart rate goes up, my body temperature goes up, right? Thinking through some of those things, my stomach really hurts. And so all of those things I've learned that over time that a run or a fast walk really does not help my anxiety in the same way that it helps my stress levels. Okay. So I do something else. I do mindfulness. I meditate. I take a long bath. So thinking through some of the things and how we address these symptoms is really, really important. And so we have to first start with, what do I experience? If you don't know that, I encourage you this week to just really start listening into your body. Am I more irritable than usual? Do I have a headache? If I have a headache, what's going on in my life? If I'm have a lot of worry going on, just taking a moment to evaluate yourself, ask yourself some internal questions of how you're doing, and do those brief check-ins. So, my next point, we've talked a lot about stress itself, anxiety itself, and some symptoms. And I want to kind of shift to, what are you already doing to manage your stress and anxiety? And if you say nothing, that's okay. If you don't know what to do to manage your stress and anxiety, that's okay, right? This is what this is for. But if you do have things that you're like, this works so well for me, I love doing this, whether it's journaling or something artsy like knitting or coloring or something like that, absolutely keep doing whatever it is that you love to do. But I'm going to be here today to walk you through maybe some more options that you can do to manage your stress, especially if the things you're doing now are not working. If you're looking for more ideas, or if you don't have anything yet that you feel is beneficial to managing your stress. So let's talk about it. So some ways to manage stress. The first one is self-care. Self-care is any activity or behavior that you do that takes care of your physical, emotional, and overall well-being. So whether that is FaceTiming a friend, enjoying a cup of coffee by yourself in the mornings before you go to work or school, whether that is journaling or doing something artsy, like I said, painting, something like that, anything that brings you joy is going to be considered self-care. It does not have to be time consuming. It does not have to cost a lot of money, but it's just something that you do that brings you a lot of joy. The second one is mindfulness. Mindfulness is paying attention to the moment to moment experience with complete presence and compassion. As human beings, we tend to do a lot of things mindlessly, right? So, an example, have you ever been driving down the road and all of a sudden you like pull into your house and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? Or you go through a red light and you're like, oh my gosh, was that green? So, thinking through some of the things that we do all the time that we've just kind of gotten in this habit of not really doing in a way that's mindful. So take, for example, washing your hands. That's one way, it's easiest way for me to practice mindfulness every day. So while I'm washing my hands, I'm sitting there, I'm focusing, I'm honing in on my senses. I'm taking that time to practice mindfulness. I'm focusing on how the water feels. What does the soap look like? What does it smell like? What do I hear? Right? I hear the running water. I hear the suds. And so I really just take that 20 seconds to 30 seconds to really just pay attention and be present in that moment. Versus washing my hands, being like, oh my gosh, I have to get back to the office. I have to answer that email and do this. I just take that time for myself. And that's mindfulness. And you can do mindfulness in a lot of ways. The next one is avoiding negative self-talk. So we often have really bad habits of talking to ourselves in a really negative manner. We're really hard on ourselves. And so I encourage you, instead of being so hard on yourself and talking negatively to yourself, that you participate in some positive self-regard and self-compassion. So thinking through, the same way that you would talk to a friend that comes up to you and is like, I am worthless. I'm not successful in my job. I'm not successful in my career, in my life. we talk to them in a way that's like, you can do this. I have your back, right? We're very encouraging to them and we're genuine, right? We really mean that. And so that all it is self-compassion, is taking that compassion that we're giving to that friend or that family member and we're turning it inward, right? And we're giving ourselves that same compassion, grace, and love that we all absolutely deserve. My next one is mindful exercise. So exercising every day is really, really helpful to our stress and anxiety management. It's really important for a lot of other health components and strategies. And so thinking through, I always tell any student that I work with, make sure that you find something that you enjoy, an exercise that you like. Make sure that you're moving your body because you love it. You want to take care of it. You want to manage your stress, right? You want to be healthy, and not because we hate our bodies or in a negative connotation. And changing that mindset can take time, but I promise you, changing that mindset will completely change your outlook on exercise itself. And so, thinking through mindful exercise and feeling the movement, appreciating all of the movement that your body can do, can really change the way in which you exercise, how much you exercise, and finding true joy in mindful movement. Make small obtainable goals each day that you can achieve. So some days we wake up, and I know that I have a really bad habit of this. I wake up and I put 40 things on my to-do list. And as I take a step back and I look at that to-do list, number one, I'm overwhelmed at looking at it, right? I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, that is way too much to do. But then also, even if I get through 20 of those items or 30 of those items, I still finish my day feeling guilty that I didn't complete all those things, feeling unsuccessful. And so, what we also know is that we don't sleep well when we go to bed feeling unsuccessful, feeling guilty about our day. And so, ideally, we want to take a little bit of that time management component into account and focus on what absolutely has to be done today. How can I take some of these other bigger tasks, divide them up between the days, and also have that time for self-care and self-reflection. Have a good sleep schedule. So we all need anywhere from 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. I am totally aware that that does not always happen. We all have busy lives, whether we're students or workers. We're students and workers. We're, moms and dads, brothers and sisters, whatever it is that we are. And so thinking through all of those things definitely can have an impact on our sleep schedule. I always try to say, even if you're not getting, that 6 hours, or, you're only getting 6 hours at that point, what can we do this week to get you 6 hours and 15 minutes, right? 6 hours and 30 minutes until we can build ourselves back up to that 7 hour to 7 to 9 hour mark. Set boundaries. I think that we could all probably use a little bit more practice with the word no, and setting boundaries with ourselves, releasing some of those expectations that are kind of unrealistic, and so that we can set ourselves up better for success, that we take time when we need it. Hey, I can't do this right this moment. I really need to take a 30-minute walk, or I really need to take a 15-minute break. And so also telling yourself no when we tend to put some of those expectations on ourselves. And the last one is radical acceptance. And I'm going to talk a lot more about radical acceptance here in a couple of slides. But radical acceptance is essentially focusing on things within our control versus the things outside of our control. And I'll talk more about that. I always include this, just 25 ideas for self-care, and picking one maybe that you're like, yes, I'm absolutely going to try that this week, or oh, I do those and I love it. Just thinking through, I always try to give a little bit of ideas for self-care in case you feel like you don't have enough or you really don't know what to do that would be helpful for you. Here's mindfulness again, paying attention to that moment-to-moment experience with complete presence and compassion. If we have some time, we can definitely do this video. It's only for 5 minutes. However, some people don't like to do that, like with somebody else looking at them. And so make sure that you find a mindfulness that you enjoy, whether it's just ocean waves and someone talking you through a meditation, or it's just some deep breathing exercises. There are so many videos from 1 minute to hours long on YouTube of different mindfulness and meditation ideas that you can do. So again, encouraging you to find what works for you and what you enjoy the most. So radical acceptance. I said we would come back to this a little bit more, and I think it's because I try to spend more time with this because it's so important. And I know that when I am constantly reminding myself radical acceptance, that I tend to be less stressed out and more successful. So radical acceptance is being willing to experience a situation as it is versus how we want it to be, right? So willfulness versus willingness. Willfulness means that we are unable to accept a situation for what it is, and we demand change even though it's out of our control. This tends to lead to giving up, ineffective work, denial. The biggest one I can think of right now is with everything going on with COVID-19 and transitioning from being completely virtual to completely back in person, or a hybrid schedule, or whatever it is that you're experiencing right now, and focusing on the things that, I can't believe we're having to go back full time right now, X, Y, and Z, whatever it is that you're experiencing, and instead focusing on what can I control, right? I can't control those legislations or those regulations at my work. However, here's what I can control. Okay. And then we have willingness, which means that we are accepting a situation as it is. When we do this, we allow ourselves to focus on the things that we can change, okay, versus the things that we can't. So just to encourage you, what is another example of this? So I mentioned COVID and like the transition from work or school back into full-time classes. Just encourage you to think of other examples of this, of things that we can do throughout the day. So how do we try it out? Well, one of my favorite activities is called Take a Rest. This is good for anytime you're in conflict, or anytime that you're feeling really overwhelmed or stressed out about a situation. The first thing we can do is relax. Take a moment, take a step back, and just try to get our breathing under control. Take a deep breath. And then we evaluate the situation, right? What's happening? What's going on? What can I control versus what can I not control? And then I set an intention, right? So I'm feeling this, then this, X, Y, and Z, and I don't want to feel that way. I've evaluated, this is how I'm feeling, this is the situation, and I set an intention, right? What am I going to do next? And then I take action. Okay, whether that be what I'm going to say, how I'm going to address the situation, what I'm going to do to address, whatever it is that I'm experiencing at that time. And so it's a really, really cool tool to use, especially in everyday life when we're experiencing a lot of stress, but also in conflict or relationships or anything like that. It's always okay to take a step back and evaluate how you're feeling before we respond. Okay, so I want to mention unhelpful thinking styles. As I read through these, I just encourage you to kind of think about, do I do this or do I do that? It's really important to kind of learn what these unhelpful thinking styles are so that we can kind of start trying to catch them and change them. One is all or nothing thinking. So having that mindset, of that perspective of I'm either perfect or I'm a failure, and there's nothing in between. Mental filter, this is filtering out all of the good versus all of the bad, right? So only focusing on maybe the bad throughout your day and not focusing on the good things. Jumping to conclusions. So these are my mind readers, my future tellers, right? I'm never going to get out of this situation, or people are going to think this about me, or my career is going nowhere, right? So thinking all those things that we tend to do while we jump to conclusions, right? Everything bad happens to me. Emotional reasoning. This is when we give our emotions that sense of purpose. And what I mean by that is that, even if you feel worthless, it doesn't mean that you are. Okay, your emotions are valid, and I encourage you to feel them and process them, but they also lie. So when they tell you that you're not worth it, or that you're unworthy, that is absolutely a lie. You 100% are worth it. You are worthy. And so thinking through some of that emotional reasoning that we tend to do. Labeling, this is labeling ourselves as things. So I'm stupid, I'm ugly, I, am a failure, X, Y, and Z. And so it's really not helpful to us in any capacity when we label ourselves as something. And so thinking through again how that can be an unhelpful thinking style. Overgeneralizing, so taking one thing and overgeneralizing it to everything else. Nothing good ever happens in my life after one bad thing happened, or my whole day is ruined after one bad thing, right? Then we have disqualifying the positive. This is for people who, even if they get compliments, or even if their day is going really, really well, we really only we just kind of throw all of that positivity aside. So an example could be like after you get done with a presentation or something like that, like everybody comes up to you, or most people are like, great job, like you did it, I loved it. But then like that one person comes up to you and is just like, I didn't really like it, or whatever that they say to you. We obviously sometimes tend to focus on that negative thing versus all of that other positive stuff that happened. Magnification, so this is catastrophizing and minimalization. So magnification, catastrophizing, blowing things out of proportion, and then minimizing, so even minimizing the good, or minimizing things that have happened because you don't feel like it's worth talking about. And so that can also play a role in minimization. Should and must, these are two of the most dangerous words that we can say to ourselves. I should be doing this. I shouldn't have done that. I must be perfect, right? I must do this. Again, just not very helpful terminology for ourselves. And the last one is personalization. So taking things that are out of our control and personalizing to ourselves, and saying things are, oh, this is my fault, even if it has nothing to do with us. So now that we've talked through some of those unhelpful thinking styles, as you listen to this, you're probably like, I definitely do that, or I definitely do that one. So now let's talk about what can we do to address them. First, I want to say that these thoughts are thoughts that just automatically pop into our heads. We don't necessarily choose them. They just kind of happen. So the first thing that we can do is we can catch them. A lot of times people try to ignore them and hope that they'll go away. But what we tend to end up doing is jumping down that rabbit hole of negative self-talk, right? So it starts with, you did something at work, maybe it didn't work out, or you did something at school and you didn't get a good grade on it. And we have that thought of like, I'm stupid. And so instead of letting ourselves jump down that rabbit hole of I'm stupid, I'm never going to succeed, I'm going to get fired, or I'm going to fail this class, whatever it is that you experience, we want to catch it, right? And then we want to challenge ourselves. We want to stop, we want to pay attention and get some perspective of the situation. So we've caught it. I've had that thought, I'm stupid. I stop. I'm like, okay, I pay attention to myself. Are you stupid, or do you feel stupid? If you feel stupid, how come? What happened, right? And I literally kind of analyze the situation in my head, or sometimes I write it down if that's the most helpful thing, and I get a little bit of perspective of the situations, right? So I tell myself it's an emotion. You feel stupid. It does not actually mean that you are stupid. And then I change the thought itself. You're not stupid. You didn't do well on this assignment. You didn't do well on this program or this presentation that you gave. That's okay. You now know what the audience was looking for, or what the professor was looking for. You can definitely do it next time. And I kind of set myself into this like place where I'm creating an action plan for next time. And that's one of the most beneficial components, is that once we catch it and we challenge it and we change it, then by the end of the day, if we're doing that to every single one of these negative thoughts, we end the day feeling much more successful, less stressed, and even a little proud of ourselves, which is how we want to end the day, right? So I always try to, include these for myself, honestly, throughout the day. And so I want to give them to you as just some gentle reminders of things to think about every single day. One, to love yourself. You deserve your own love and compassion more than anybody else. And you absolutely deserve it. And it's not selfish in any capacity. Your worth as a human being, as a person, is not defined by your productivity. So thinking through all of these things that we talk about, your worth is not defined by anything that we do at work. It's not defined by anything that you do as a student. Um, your worth as a human being is there because you're living on earth, right? And you absolutely deserve your own love and your worth. Change cannot occur in the past, only in the present. So thinking through, even things that happened this morning, I can't change anything about those things. I can reflect upon them. I can make an action plan moving forward, but I can't change it. And so thinking through that mindset of, if I'm having that mindset and trying not to dwell on the things that I can't change, then I can really focus on the things that I can. And then it's okay to not feel okay right now. If you're not doing well right now, if you're really stressed, you're really overwhelmed, maybe you're really anxious, maybe you're going through a lot, it's okay. I really encourage you to do something for yourself. Take some time to reflect, take some time to go to therapy if that's something that you're interested in doing, talking to friends, and doing some things that you enjoy. I always include this quote by Buddha, and it says, "You can search throughout the entire universe for someone who is more deserving of your love and affection than you are yourself, and that person is not to be found anywhere. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserves your love and affection." And that is so true. Um, Absolutely. I feel like I can't express it enough that you deserve your own love and affection. And so I'm hoping that you're doing something for yourself to either grow that self-love or grow that grace and that self-compassion throughout the upcoming days and weeks. So I wanted to include just some resources. No matter where you are, there's, whether you're a college student right now, there's college counseling centers for you, no matter where you're located. Whether you're a community member, you have, community clinicians and psychologists in your area. And if not, there's some other areas further out, or some of these national resources. Whether you're looking for more education on stress and anxiety management, the National Institute of Mental Health, the Center for Clinical Interventions, as well as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, are all credible and amazing resources that get updated regularly for the best practices and ways to take care of yourself. So if you're looking for more of that educational piece, please check those resources out. They're absolutely amazing. And then if you're in some type of need right now for some national resources, please look at these National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK or 8255, available 24/7, a crisis text line. So even if you're just really overwhelmed right now, you can text, "Hey, I need to talk to someone. I'm not doing well today," and a crisis specialist will text you back. And then Trevor Project for Trans and Non-Binary Youth is a really good resource. They have a text line at 678-678, or you can call them at 1-866-488-7386. And so again, a really, really, really good resource. That's all that I have for today. I know this was supposed to be about a 30-minute presentation. Normally, I like to have a lot of discussions in my presentations, but if you are in need of anything and you have any additional questions, you can always email me. Again, my name is Cameron Talley. My email is kjtalley, so TALLEY, at USF, which stands for University of South Florida.edu. Again, just thank you so much for your time and your energy today. It is invaluable, and I know that. And I really hope that you do something over the next few days, the next few weeks, to take care of yourself and reach out for support if and when you need it. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.